Hello everyone. Today I'll be presenting my presentation on the research papers. So let's get right into it. My overall idea for my research papers was medical racism and mental health. In the first paper, I originally wanted to focus on race, white privilege, and racism, and how those are related to the medical field. And the second paper was going to have more of a focus on mental health and how in certain races, or basically in certain races, that there's more of a concern for those mental health disorders due to maybe treatment or language barriers. Once I had my theme set in stone and I knew that was gonna more than likely for sure be my theme, I wanted to make sure that I really narrowed down into my topic so that I could know what I needed to research for these two papers. What could help me be precise in what I needed to know for these two papers. By doing this, I was able to get questions for my paper, meaning that I could have a better chance at having a good or reasonable counter argument. The factors that contribute to the process of medical racism in the healthcare field involves language barriers, healthcare providers, which predominantly are white, race or racism, and discrimination. A summary of the research paper 1 and my thesis was that many people can agree that the medical field is perceived as being equitable due to professionalism and envision mortality, but in today's society, this statement shows otherwise. Meaning that this statement is saying in the medical field, everyone hopes and thinks that they treat everyone equally and they are professional every single time and they envision mortality, but in today's society, how people have been treated in the past or currently, this statement shows completely otherwise. People also all over can agree that certain individuals of colors are completely not being heard, and this causes their medical situation to not be addressed properly. The key terms I used in the research paper 1 was race, which is a social construction to describe a group of people who share physical and cultural traits as well as a common ancestry. Racism, the belief that races are populations whose physical differences are linked to significant cultural and social differences within a hierarchy. And lastly, white privilege, which is the advantages inherent in being categorized as white. And the summary of my research paper 2 and the thesis was, unfortunately, the Latino and Hispanic community face many struggles when it comes to them trying to address their health concerns. Some of them struggle and deal with language barriers because most healthcare providers are white and they do not know how to speak Spanish or understand Spanish, meaning the Latino or Hispanic community is kind of confused because when they're trying to talk to someone, it's like two people talking with two different races. It's not going to work. You don't understand each other. The key terms that I used for my research paper 2 was discrimination, the practice of treating people indifferently on the basis of their race; white privilege, the advantages inherent in being characterized as white; and racism, again, which refers to both the belief that races are populations whose physical differences are linked to significant cultural and social differences within a hierarchy, and the practice of subordinating races believed to be inferior. I tried with both of my research papers to prove my thesis by, using credible sources so that people would, look at my source and be like, oh yeah, I've seen that, or yeah, that's true. Like my analysis, my evidence that I used would back up my data, but I feel like I kind of struggled with credible sources. And I also tried my hardest, which is super hard when you're writing one of these papers and how kind of personal it gets. You really, really, really have to avoid and try your best at being biased and really put your feelings and emotions aside, which I think I could have done better at. Also, I feel like going into another research paper I ever do, I will make sure that my thesis statement can be revised, meaning that I can look at it and change it multiple times after researching and developing my argument, making my thesis only stronger because it's going to be backed up by my sources or research. I learned many things during the 2 papers that I wrote. I realized that health risks are much higher, especially for some individuals of color. Also, the COVID-19 pandemic really caught people's attention in a way that they noticed the racial inequality for their healthcare outcomes. The use of whether it's intentional or unintentional discrimination of many people. Also, that many people of color experience higher rates of poorer health compared to white people, which can relate back to white privilege in some people's eyes. And one of the biggest and main concerns is the language barrier the Latino community has, which is not their fault, but this still affects them negatively towards their health. I provided an image or collage that represents the ideas in both of my research paper 1 and 2 papers. Sorry, I had to log in. So I made this collage. I made a language barrier and put a picture kind of showing that the white doctor is trying to talk to this Latino patient, and her brain's kind of saying like, what is going on, like question mark, I don't understand, because it just sounds like gibberish since one speaks English and one speaks Spanish. I also added white privilege, and this picture relates to it, as in, what is the matter? It's the same distance, meaning like this white guy is asking this Latino, what's the matter? It's the same distance, it's fair. Well, no, this girl has many more obstacles to go through and you have a clear shot. I also added some pictures relating back to race and racism in the healthcare, and that everyone should deserve healthcare and everybody should get healthcare no matter their income or their employment. Also, racism makes our patients sicker, meaning their mental health can maybe go down negatively due to racism, and due to the lack of diversity can cause a majority of people being catered to while the minority are being overlooked or not heard or seen. So that is my collage. This assignment definitely taught me patience. It was quite tricky, like Professor Mendoza said. She said it was hard, but it taught me a lot, and I really, really enjoyed this assignment. Especially being a nurse, I have learned that I can be more informed. That now that I am more informed on medical racism, that I can recognize the systemic inequality and discriminatory practices happening right in front of my eyes, so I can try to help change certain things in a positive way. Also, now I can reflect on my own assumptions and kind of reflect back due to this course and help me get through those assumptions. This course also definitely deepened my understanding regarding healthcare inequality, and I am hoping as a nurse I can try to change those things, and I will expand my roles and partner with other communities or clinics or sectors to reshape or rebuild the equality that everyone deserves in healthcare. I definitely had struggles when writing this paper. Towards the beginning of the paper, I struggled with picking my topic due to there being a lot of options available to us, and I still can probably think of many ideas on what other things I would choose to write my paper on other than healthcare. The middle of the paper, gathering the data that had to make sense with my argument. while being reliable. So finding, like I said in the beginning of this presentation, finding those credible sources that can back you up, which makes your argument believable or credible. And at the end of the paper, I usually am like this with every paper I write. Towards the end, once I'm in the flow and I have a very good idea of what I'm writing and what I'm trying to visualize and create for my listeners, I don't struggle as much, and I can, have that good, flow of just writing, and everything just kind of comes together. For this assignment, if I can change anything or take a different approach, I would want my thesis to kind of be able to be proven in an easier way so people can understand. And I would want to have a better approach at creating a question that coincides with my thesis or topic of my paper to create that easily recognized counter-argument or argument, which is very important in a research paper. I also wish that I had more of a central point that I wanted to argue for my first and second paper, meaning that I wanted it to be more of like, this is exactly like the central idea, main point of what I want to argue, and I wanted people to be able to recognize that easily, but I feel like I could have definitely done a better job at that. As well as I could have used more data or citations, especially credible data and citations, to support me or back me up with my evidence and reasoning towards my argument. I could have also used stronger languages to make the argument more entertaining, to keep people's, attention, and be, like I said, more specific in with my thesis statement, but also make it easy to be proven. And I could have adjusted both of my papers to make it have a more debatable view, meaning I wanted it to be more of a counter-argument look on it. For my research, it took me about a week, maybe a little over a week actually, to find everything after reading and researching all the things that I needed for this course. It took me about 30 to 45 minutes a day, which was daily for maybe 7 or 8 days. And then when I had all my information and my research and my quotes and citations, the formatting and writing of the paper usually it's quick for me in other papers. I've taken many classes that involve papers, but it took me about 3 to 4 days, and I usually can write 2, maybe even sometimes 3 paragraphs each day when I'm writing a paper. But now that I'm working full time, it took me about 1 paragraph each day, so about a little less than a week. And I could say that the part that took me the longest was finding the credible sources, like I've mentioned. The advice that I would give to future students when having to complete this assignment is to definitely make sure that you have enough time to complete the essays. Do not procrastinate. Do not wait last minute. Oh, it's just a paper. It's going to be quick. No, this takes a lot of, not critical thinking, but a lot of thought and patience and time to find the right idea or source or topic for your paper. You also want to make sure that you completely understand what the professor is asking of you, so that you have a clear understanding and you have everything that you need in your paper. You want to be understanding and have a clear interpretation of what format the professor wants, what kind of footnotes, what style, meaning like in these 2 papers it was Chicago style. You also want to make sure that you have enough citations and that your annotated bibliography has the 2 to 3 quotes you need, the 4 quotes that you need actually, reflecting back and describing it, and that your paragraphs have at least 4 sentences. You also want to make sure that everything that you're citing or sourcing are from credible sources, and do not be afraid to ask the professor any questions regarding these papers. This slide is the grading rubric slash kind of a approach that I could have taken differently to get a higher score. So starting off with the thesis, I think, like I've said in the last couple slides, that I could have been more specific in how I could prove my idea or thesis. But I did do bold text, so that's a good thing. So I would give myself overall for my thesis a score of 2. For the quotes, I did have 3 quotes, but now thinking back, I don't know for sure if my 3 quotes, like it was 2 scholarly and one quote from the reflecting back to the textbook from our course. So I gave myself not full points for that, but in the higher rank of 4 points. For key terms and the idea from the course, I definitely had my 3 key terms in each paper, but I feel like I could have taken a better approach at being more clear with my key terms and giving a better example of how it tied back to our course. The analysis of our paragraph formation. My paper was in logical order, meaning that everything, my intro to my body, to my 3 paragraph bodies, to my conclusion, all made sense and flowed with one another. I also brought up relevant data that relates that's current right now, which COVID-19 will never go away and is not going to go away, so it's relevant, even though it happened in 2019. But still, I brought up more recent things that have happened to argue my thesis or my proof. The scholarly research, I did have 2 scholarly sources in my annotated bibliography. In the annotated bibliography, all of my sources were listed, and they did have at least 3 sentences. I know in our grading rubric it was 4, but I know mine at least had 3 sentences, and they were in alphabetical order. So I gave myself a score of 3. The complete paragraph, the intro, I did have the complete paragraphs, meaning I had an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion, so I gave myself 5 points. I did try my best at the Chicago/Turpin footnotes. My footnotes did reflect back on the quote and paraphrase it, as well as it had the page number and the number of the paragraph. So I gave myself a 7. And the page length, my essay for each of them was 3 pages, and it said that the 3rd page had to be more than half a page. I'm pretty sure for the second essay, it was only half a page, not more than a half, so I only gave myself 2 points for that, with a total of 44 points. And that is all I have. Thank you guys.